I know that today's generation, everyone is either anxious, unhappy, unfulfilled, stressed out. What is the essence that one should take away from the book?
The questions that we should really ask ourselves, we probably never ask. I mean, the basic question of who am I is something that we have probably never really paused and asked ourselves. What is this universe? Is there any point to it at all? And the answers are all there in our scriptures. If you look at the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is talking about Arjun Vishad Yoga, where he's talking about what is the stress that he's going through in going to this fight. He puts his Gandiv down, saying, I'm not going to fight. Arjun is nothing but the mind which has got overwhelmed by emotions. What is Krishna? Krishna is nothing but the intellect. What are the five horses that he is holding? They are the five senses that we have. Saying if your five senses are in the hands of your intellect, then your body will go in the right direction. We live at three layers. We live at the level of the body, we live at the level of the mind, and we live at the level of the intellect. Brain is nothing but a massive washing machine. So it will keep churning what is inside. Now what goes inside is in our hand.
What has your relationship with money been and how have you worked on it over the years? Hey guys, I'm happy to be a part of Zerodha's media network. Together, Zerodha and I plan to bring to you simple yet effective and impactful news and views from the best minds in the financial world. Hey guys, welcome to the Money Mindset. My guest today is someone who's a veteran in the banking industry, but I've called him on the show Money Mindset because of a book that he's recently written called Mondays at 7, and I have it here. It's a book that I think is one of the best books I've read in 2025, so I'm so happy to have him here. Aseem Dhru of SBFC Finance is here with us. Aseem, thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thank you for having me here.
And it's interesting, right? You've had this amazing career in the banking industry and you've seen ups and downs with HDFC Bank, now with SBFC Finance, and now you're an author as well. You've written this beautiful book. How has your journey been so far?
So on a lighter note, they say if you are running an NBFC, it's good to have a plan B. But actually, the book is nothing but years of reading across genres. One is absorbed like a sponge. Somewhere the dots connected, and the output is out here. It actually began just as a lark. On LinkedIn, I used to keep writing every Monday, and somehow people liked what was coming their way, and one of the friends decided to put it together as a book, and there we are.
So I used to follow a lot of your posts on LinkedIn. Now you write on Twitter as well. And it has really impacted a lot of people. I mean, you may not realize it, but it's inspired people. And I'm so glad you've come out with this book. I want to talk a little bit about the book itself. But before that, you've had this amazing career, right? For people who don't know, you've been, at the leadership level at HDFC Bank for the longest time. Now you're running SBFC Finance. You've had a sort of a ringside view of the banking industry, and not just the top 5% of India, but it's actually the 90% of India that matters. Where do you think we are at from your vantage point, and how do you see things progress from here?
So I would say that we have to look at it in two ways, because banking is nothing but a reflection of the economy. So one has to know where banking is, one has to see where the economy is. And overall, if you see, we are at the third stage of the industrial revolution in a sense. So at the first stage, you had the hard industries, you had steel, coal, chemicals, aluminum, all of that, electricity, really taking off. At the second stage, you had internet, enabled, businesses coming up. You had pharmaceuticals and the slightly evolved businesses coming up. And now we're at the third stage, and this stage is a stage of artificial intelligence. It's a stage of clean energy. It's a stage of robotics. The entire way in which every business is being done is undergoing a change, and we are at that third stage. What has also happened is that in India, in financialization of savings, mutual funds have really come of age. Mutual Fund Sahi Hai campaign was probably one of the most successful campaigns to have run. It has really made an impact, and for the good. So in a sense, what has happened is that the savings has migrated to some extent from what was used to be only with banking to the fund houses. From there, it comes back to the banking system, but it comes back in a different format. It comes back as a wholesale format. So for the banking system now, deposit creation continues to be a challenge. Lending opportunities continue to be plenty. So now it is about banks which are able to attract deposits, which will be able to continue their growth. Overall, will the lending system continue to grow at a 2.5 times roughly multiplier of GDP? I think so. So at a 7%, 6 to 7% GDP, give or take, we should see a 15% plus loan growth happen in the system. And the better off run banks will continue to gain market share over that.
So since you're talking about GDP, right, everyone is now talking about how India sort of surpassed Japan to become, is on its way to become the fourth largest economy. But the problem still lies in the per capita GDP, where we are far behind. Where do you think what are the gaps that need to be filled?
To see what we can do differently on per capita, one is to see the example of Singapore. Because when Lee Kuan Yew came in, Singapore was at $500 GDP per capita. And it is at $60,000 now. It is the only country to have gone from third world to first world in one generation. And how was it done? It was done by basic, simple building blocks done right. So first was language. Now we today just see in the context of where India is today. Singapore at that point of time had Chinese, Malay and Tamil as three languages which were the official languages spoken by the population. And Lee Kuan Yew realized that there will always be a conflict of languages if they selected one of the languages as a national language. So they selected English as the national language and said everybody has to study English, all commerce will be in English. And that is how they opened the doors and to ensure that the whole country gets united by a foreign language. Today, if you see India, I mean, we are also a disparate, we are like a Europe, we are more Europe than US, where each state is a separate country, separate language, separate culture, separate food, everything changes as you cross boundaries. If we are actually disparate people united by a foreign language. And I think we should embrace it and make English our national language if we are to really progress in that sense. The second is education. The quality of education and the skill upliftment of population that Singapore has done is worth studying, and that's something that need to be done. The third is meritocracy. All these, we talk of reservations, we talk of all of this. Somewhere in that social fabric of the nation gets stretched. So the intention may be good, but the output, unless it is pure meritocratic driven, is never fair. And the fourth is zero tolerance to corruption, which is what Singapore managed to achieve. And until there is corruption, you will always have everything happening at a suboptimal level. So to lift the nation, in my opinion, and looking at what we can learn from Singapore, these four things could go a long way to change our per capita GDP trajectory over the next few years.
But in a democracy as large as ours, do you think trying to get English to be the main language? I mean, that's going to take a long time.
No, it's not going to happen. Yeah. It's not going to happen. But this is the formula that we can learn from. Singapore also had a lot of pushback, but because it was a more authoritative democracy, if you will, they could manage to do it. But ultimately, it is about doing what is right for the country. And at some point of time, the problem, with our political system is that every government has to run a popularity contest every 5 years. And when you are standing in a popularity contest, it's very difficult to do what is right. Because what is right, even whether it's in a company or whether it is in the country, is never popular. So until the leader has to be popular, you will have this 2-step forward, 1-step backward dance, that we are going through.
So a lot of us live in the India that is perhaps 3, 4, 5%, right? There is a 95% which is Bharat. And you have had a lot of experience on that front, whether it's agri-finance, whether it's micro loans, and even what you're doing right now. How much progress has been made so far? And what do you think so when you talk about challenges, right, there's of course jobs, there is inflation, there is health. These are 3 or 4 areas that need to be worked upon. But how much progress do you think needs to be made? And from your vantage point, where are we at?
So actually, we have not done such a good job of urbanization. We have done a better job in the non-metros. So today, if you see, if you look at Bangalore, it's a case in point that, do you know that the area of Bangalore and Tokyo are the same? 2,600 square kilometer is the area of both the cities. In Bangalore, about 1.5 crore people stay. In Tokyo, 3.6 crore people stay. Logically, if Bangalore's traffic situation is what it is, Tokyo, nobody should be able to even move. But the reality is that almost 90% of there use public transport. So unlike the exact reverse in Bangalore, where 83% use personal transportation. So the metros in Tokyo carry forward almost 4 crore trips a day, while the metros in Bangalore do about 6 lakh trips a day. So effectively, if you see, we have not done a good job of urbanization and created difficulties in almost all our larger states, all cities. Now, if you go to the smaller towns, it's a very different India. It is very exciting to go to smaller towns because that's the India that is really growing. That's the India that's really changing. You have the same brands coming in there, the same multiplexes coming in there, the same big malls coming in there. So their life is altering. They are still living a much better quality of life than what some of us live in the big cities. They are breathing better quality air for sure. And they are getting access to everything that they could have otherwise had to go to a big city to get. So even for their shopping needs, they no longer have to travel to big cities. So in some sense, the Gandhian let's take India to the village has finally begun to happen in the last 10 years.
Okay, so I remember you were talking about this somewhere where you said that the problem between India and China is that in China they managed to move people from an agrarian to an industrial economy fairly quickly. And that hasn't happened in India just yet. Do you think we're at the cusp of that though?
So unfortunately, see, everything is about timing. There was a time for manufacturing where jobs could be created in manufacturing. That time is now gone. No longer, even if you now become a manufacturing hub, you will not be able to create the kind of jobs that China was able to create in its time.
Why is
because
that?
if you see now, technology has gone so far ahead that even in China, you have dark factories. There is not even a single light on. Machines are working day and night. Engineers come in the morning at 6 a.m. They just repair what's broken. The shop floor is cleaned up. Again, everybody leaves the factory and the production goes on its own. So now dark factories are the way, even when new plants are being set up, now hardly any labor is needed, because what is happening is that the machine is making, the human is just checking. So instead of having 20 people in an assembly line, now you just have one supervisor supervising an entire floor, because the machine that is not working just lights up and that needs attention. So because everything is now got so automated, technology is available cheaper, and now AI is going to get infused in almost everything, every part of life. So the whole the approach to things have changed. Jobs is now going to be a problem across the world, in developed and developing countries both. It is no longer possible to do what was easy, that when you moved from agrarian to industrial, you created jobs. Now that is gone. Now only high skilled jobs is what is really going to be in demand. And supply for that will be less, and therefore they will be at a premium. But for the mass population that we have, it is going to be a big challenge, because in almost everything, including say things like a movie making, it used to be an extremely people-oriented business. And now, with the way technology is moving, with all the technology that comes behind, you'll be able to make a movie with far less people, with your VFX effects doing most of the work that otherwise people would have done. So across industry, across everywhere, it's not that easy now to create jobs anymore.
So what happens then to the India growth story, so to speak? Because the main thing that India was banking on was its demographic dividend, right? But if a large chunk of the youth don't have jobs, then what happens?
So what is changing is that you have now, earlier what used to happen is that new industries could only be set up by people from industrial homes. So if you see India's story, where did the first industrialists come from? They basically came from people who took national resources and sold it at market rates. So whether it was somebody got access to mining, somebody got access to coal, somebody got access to bauxite, somebody got access to spectrum. So you had everybody coming in who took national resources and were able to sell it at market rates. And through the commodity boom, most industrial houses got built out. That has now changed. Now no longer that is possible, and the new businesses are all being financed by private equity, by venture capital, etc. that has come in, and that's a new level of businesses that are coming up. So while we may sometimes question. But the fact is that every gig worker, job that is getting generated, is good for the economy, because those people also need jobs. As businesses migrate, I mean, see, for example, if you look at, one way to look at it is that Bombay had 60,000 taxi drivers, the black and yellow, at some point of time. Now, if you look at Uber plus Ola, plus the other ones that are there are almost over 2.5 lakh taxi drivers plying the trade. So effectively, have the number of jobs gone up? Yes, but the kind of jobs have altered. So what will happen going forward is that more and more businesses will come up. They may not employ huge number of people, but there'll be a huge number of businesses that will come up. So, but skilling of people, has become now a huge challenge. It was a big challenge earlier. Now it has become an even bigger challenge, and that's something that we will have to solve for.
Okay. And as far as the lending business is concerned, what kind of changes have you seen, say, not just in the agrarian economy, but overall, rural, semi-urban, tier 1, tier 2? I'm asking because, there are a lot of young people who watch these shows, and to understand how to start in the banking industry, how to start in the NBFC space, what should they know before they start?
So the essence of lending remains the same, that you are identifying only two things, the ability of the customer to repay your loan and the willingness to repay the loan. So in the end, it comes down to only these two things. However, what is used to determine these two things have changed dramatically. So earlier, it used to be more paperwork. Earlier, it used to be more, ask for people around because you didn't have data. I mean, we used to, when we began lending, so when we began retail assets in HDFC Bank way back in 97, there was no Aadhaar, there was no, and there was no CIBIL, there were no bureaus. We didn't even know a customer X from a customer Y. If the same customer had a different address on a driving license, we could happily give another loan without realizing it's the same customer. So it was a very different world out there, and different kind of checks had to be done at that point of time. And it was much easier to game the system. With the advent of Aadhaar, with the advent of the India stack, that came through, with the advent of credit bureaus that came through, now it has become a lot more sophisticated and data driven. So no longer do you need to do the manual paperwork. So the friction in the loan approval process has gone. Now the machine is able to much easily figure out what humans were struggling, to actually achieve. A bank statement gets, looked at in seconds, and exactly what you want is thrown out. Earlier, somebody had to actually manually go through every entry in the bank statement. So the way in which credit is delivered has got altered. And the way you are able to get the loan repayments has got altered. Now, most of the loan repayments comes digitally, rather than, earlier we used to have a lot of people who would go and collect cash home to home, because that was what people would pay you in. Now, with QR codes, Bitly links, etc., that has got altered. So the way in which, see, what happens is that how you do banking has got altered. What you did in banking remains the same. So the what remains the same, but the how keeps changing. Internet banking took it to another level. Then you had mobile banking that took it to another level. Apps took it to one level forward. And now with AI coming in, it will go one more level forward. But the what of doing it will remain the same. Ultimately, people will want a way to keep their money, to move their money, and to borrow their money.
So for you, it's been such a long journey, right? I mean, you've of course had mentors like Aditya Puri, Deepak Parekh. Have you worked under both of them?
Aditya Puri was a direct boss. Mr. Parekh was overall the head of the group. I always joke that if you have learned archery from Dronacharya, you may not be Arjun, but how bad can you be? So to that extent, I was lucky to have been mentored by outstanding people who had a very different and a very clear view of what banking is all about. And banking is simple. If you allow it to be simple, we sometimes complicate the ordinary. But if you keep it simple, every business at its heart is simple. You just need to know what are the levers, and move those levers and stay authentic and on the course.
So you were with a big brand, one of the biggest brands for the longest time, right? And then you sort of moved into entrepreneurship. What made you take that leap? Because I'm asking because I'm also in a similar journey. And after being, shielded under a really big brand for a long time, now you're out there open in the world, and it's a roller coaster ride. But what made you take that plunge, and how has it been for you so far?
So what probably happens is that at some stage of your career, you look for security. And when you get secure, you look for romance. So, at a second stage, now increasingly you will see this happen and play out to most professions in India. And that is how the new ventures will start coming up. That most people who had experience, in something, will want to at some stage, venture out and say, I want to now chance my arm and do something that I've learned over a period of time, but do it differently, do it better than what I did it in the earlier avatar. So one is that the security gives you an opportunity to do something that you want to do and give wings to your dreams. And I mean, it's just one life, we are going to have. If we don't try it, the answer is always no. The reality is that now there are lots of, now see, at some point of time, somebody starting a finance business was almost impossible because you had no access to capital unless you had the right surnames. If you have a poor surname, you don't have access to capital. And this business is all about capital. So, but now with so much amount of capital chasing ideas, capital is no longer an excuse for anyone to start what they want to start. So now it is just about the conviction, finding something that you truly want to do, and then executing it with discipline over decades.
So was it easy for you to get capital when you started SBFC?
Actually, it was because it was more about, I was more concerned about the quality of capital, because we were looking for $100 million to start the business with, and in exchange we had 2 Excel sheets, in terms of what we can do if we got that money. But the idea was that we wanted quality of capital because see, we are in a business that takes debt on rent. You don't want to take equity on rent. So we did not want to take it from private equity for that reason, that you don't want a promoter who's also wanting to leave in 7 years, because their fund has kind of run out. So family offices was a great construct that I was looking for, and we found the right partner with Claremont, where Richard Chandler family office agreed to back the business and take it to where we have built out. So. Sometimes, the ghost is very big in your mind, but when you actually go out there, things turn out sometimes easier than what you thought.
I agree completely. So for some of the younger people who perhaps want to enter into this industry now, whether it's banking, NBFC, do you still suggest sticking with a larger brand, working for some of the top private sector banks, or do you think that starting something new, because there is this huge opportunity with the way India is growing? What's the advice there?
See, it's horses for courses. If it's a technology business, you are better off starting as early as you can, because age actually is an advantage in technology. The younger you are, the better chances of success you have. Banking and lending is a business where some amount of experience actually helps. So, if you do it later on, you have a better probability of success because you have seen the journey of that business. You have to see credit cycles to understand how the game works. So I would recommend that anybody coming into the business of lending, should at least go through 1 or 2 credit cycles with a large institution to be able to understand that business, because otherwise you will be making too many mistakes, which will be rookie mistakes, which you will avoid if you had that 2 cycles of experience behind you.
Okay. So better, I mean, just like any other industry, right? Always better to first get some experience with the larger guys and then sort of spread your wings. Got it. Just before we, I want to talk in detail about the book as well and your learnings over there. But before that, in terms of the overall economy, since you're giving us your viewpoint, there is this one narrative that, as we move along, as India continues its growth path, there's one segment of the economy which continues to struggle a lot, which is the middle class. And whether it's inflation, whether it's, health, whether it is jobs, they're the ones getting affected the most. How bad is it currently? Because you do a lot of lending there as well. And how long do you think it could take for, this segment to sort of progress?
See, structurally, one thing has changed, that in the United States, they went on this deficit financing mode. And all governments of the world went into a deficit financing mode thereafter, printing of currency, getting into larger and larger debt, etc. So to that extent, what has happened is that the simple rule of money is that when the supply increases, it creates inflation. people were expecting inflation to come in the consumer side. But actually inflation went because money that was printed went into assets. So inflation went on the asset side. So across the world, from US, Europe, Japan, China, India, across the world, all asset classes ballooned. So whether it was real estate, whether it was stock market, whether it was bond market, whether it was bitcoins, everything that was solid assets, gold, everything rallied. This in the history of world has never happened. Logically,
You're
even
saying in the last 10 years? 10,
post-COVID.
Post-COVID,
Just
5 years, yeah.
that is when it is accelerated.
Yeah.
But otherwise over 10 years, but post-COVID, it has been just a J curve. So asset classes across, have got accelerated. So what has happened is that who owns the asset class? The rich. So the rich got fantastically richer post-COVID. There was anyway a big chasm between the 1% and the rest across every society in the world. And that chasm has just got widened. So effectively, now if you do not already own an asset, owning an asset has become that much more of a stretch, and renting it, would be much cheaper and a viable option for you, than to own it. Just because the EMIs, then become really daunting. And the EMIs restrict your ability to take decisions in life. Because these are long tenure EMIs you're doing. If you take a home loan, you're doing it over a 20-year cycle, 30-year cycle. And that restricts your optionalities, in life. And therefore, the young today, will probably live out their entire lives in rented, accommodation. Not necessarily a bad, place to be, but it has changed. Now, earlier, it was much easier to own assets. Now, even in smaller towns, no longer so.
So, I mean, that's true because it is, forget about smaller towns, in metros, I think it's just unthinkable to own property anymore. Just when you think like you can afford a property, then it becomes, 2 times more expensive. But do you think that will be the law of the land over the next decade? I mean, or is something going to change?
Logically, what would happen is that normally all cities develop satellite towns around it and have public transport that allows the city to breathe and expand. Unfortunately, we have not been able to create good public transports, from suburbs, coming into town. And, and we still have clustered businesses in certain geographies, which makes people travel in one direction, one way in the morning and the other direction the other day in the evening, which creates that extra pressure. So some of the problems that we have are very easily solvable with better infrastructure. I mean, just see that little coastal road coming up, in Bombay has completely changed your experience of Nariman Point. That whole cluster of real estate which had completely gone down after BKC coming up is actually on its way up. Similarly, just when they complete the the Bandra link, the Jew link, the entire links, then suddenly, when you realize that from Kandivali, you are able to go to Churchgate, in 15, 20 minutes, then the asset price affordability will kind of be a lot more probably possible than what it is today. So some of these things, we'll have to solve for by allowing the city to expand and making transportation within the city a lot better. But we know what needs to be done. Doing it, is where the challenge is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, now coming to the book, right? And I want to talk a little bit in depth about it because I think the book tries to teach you how to have some kind of maybe purpose or how to live with, how to find joy in normal things, how to find happiness. But that is something that everyone is struggling with. I know that today's generation, my generation, the generation in front of us, everyone is either anxious, unhappy, unfulfilled, stressed out. What is the essence that one should take away from the book?
See, more than the book, the questions that we should really ask ourselves, we probably never ask. And the lessons that we have all around us are probably not taught to us in the language in which they are easier to understand. So, for example, the basic question of who am I is something that we have probably never really paused and asked ourselves. What is this universe? Is there any point to it at all? What is death? What is this living that we do in between? Suddenly we were not there. Suddenly we come into being. and like a bubble will disappear one day, and that could be tomorrow morning, and that's all to it. And then all the stuff that we have done our life, we don't know what point was it for. We don't even know what is happening inside our body. What is the biological reactions that happen, what are the chemical reactions that happen within, how and what moves what is within us. We have no control over our thoughts, and thoughts kind of drive us nuts sometimes, but we are actually a machine which is out of control, being controlled by outside forces, and we have lost control. When you lose control of a vehicle, how do you expect it to be stable? And what is not stable? Ultimately, joy is peace, and peace can never come in an unstable vehicle. So the basic thing that probably we need to understand is how to make that vehicle stable. And the answers are all there in our scriptures, but unfortunately, religion has interfered with spirituality. And we have gone wrong with religion. And in that, we've actually missed the spirituality behind what our ancients have already taught us. So somewhere it is about understanding the perspective of who we are. Like, for example, who am I? Every one of us is three. We live at three layers. We live at the level of the body, we live at the level of the mind, and we live at the level of the intellect. And all three are on their different journeys. So we need to understand that. Vedanta, and what Chinmayananji used to teach was so beautiful that, saying that, we are the BMI, the body, the mind, the intellect. With this, what do? We are the perceiver, the feeler, the thinker. And of what? Objects, emotions, and thoughts. So the body perceives objects, the mind feels emotions, and the intellect thinks thoughts. So these are the three things, that we do. Now, it is about saying that what thoughts are. Our mind is just a massive, brain is nothing but a massive washing machine. So it will keep churning what is inside. Now, what goes inside is in our hand. Unfortunately, if I give someone garbage, the person won't eat garbage. But if I show you a stupid movie, if I indulge you in a stupid conversation, you will participate in it. And you take that garbage inside you. And that garbage inside is collecting, and it sits somewhere, it never leaves. And somewhere, it is interfering with your entire process. And our body is nothing but chemical reaction. What we call happiness is chemistry. What we call sadness is chemistry. What we call depression is chemistry. What we call joy is chemistry. Everything within the body is chemistry. Because ultimately, what is happening inside us is just whether at that moment you have your anabolic hormones working, you have your catabolic hormones working. So your catabolic hormone produces cortisol. Your anabolic hormones are all the good stuff. So the testosterone, the insulin, all of that, is produced. And, you have your amines, so whether it's a dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all these things that flow, inside you. So we are just nothing but a chemical soup that is flowing, within. So ultimately, we don't know how all this works. And meditation, unfortunately, no one teaches us this. But this is the reason you do meditation, because this is how you are getting all your body internals in check to ensure that now you can function at an optimum level of intellect. Calm and not wait, because storms will come. If you're in the external world, there is no way you can say everything should be calm and perfect, only then I'll be happy. That's not possible. The body is also not designed to be continuously at rest. It is designed for stress, rest. So actually, when you are stressed and then there's a periods of rest, then periods of stress, you actually are performing at the much more optimal level. And then if you see what is the Bhagavad Gita, it is completely misunderstood, because it is nothing about, forget about what was Lord Krishna and what was Arjun, etc. All it is telling you is that Arjun is nothing but the mind which has got overwhelmed by emotions. And that is the nature of the mind. If you look at the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is talking about Arjun Vishad Yoga, where he's talking about what is the stress that is going through in going to this fight. He puts his Gandiv down, saying, I'm not going to fight. I'm walking away from this. I don't want to do this. And then, what is Krishna? Krishna is nothing but the intellect. And then what are the five horses that he is holding? They are the five senses that we have. So then it's saying if your five senses are in the hands of your intellect, then your body will go in the right direction, and then it is about how your intellect is able to calm your mind down, your emotions down. And who's ever in this world, when the intellect goes above emotions, you experience happiness. When your emotions go above your intellect, you experience pain.
So, in this book, you've also mentioned something which I believe is a constant loop for a lot of us, right? There are two things that human beings do in general, which is either pursue pleasure or avoid pain. And it's a constant loop. I feel it myself as well a lot of times. How does one rise above that?
So see, it is such a basic animal instinct, because it is not just human beings. That's what all animals as well do. So I mean, what you call the Pavlovian symptom in dogs, that they react to food in a certain way, and they react to what is unpleasant situations in a certain way. So you will never be in a situation where you will be able to disassociate yourself from both these, because these are two primal emotion. But what is possible for you is to regulate their effect on you. You cannot change that they will have an effect on you, but how much effect you'll allow it to have on you can change. Because it is like this, that the storms will rage, but internally the conditions within me, are they driven by the situations around me, or am I in control? Who's the boss? If the boss is me, then I know that the situation is unpleasant. But that doesn't mean I need to react to it unpleasantly, that I need to become unpleasant myself because the situation is unpleasant. I don't have to, all of us will seek pleasant conditions, it is impossible that it will be pleasant all the time. So unfortunately, we get into a complaining mode too soon. If we accept things as they are. So J. Krishnamurti, says it beautifully, that he was asked to sum up, what was the source of his happiness. And he summed it up in just one sentence, as beautifully as anybody could, where he said that my secret of happiness is that I don't mind what happens. And, if you think about it, it's such a deep thing, that whatever action we take, we have no control over its output. But the anxiety kills our whole joy. So if you are able to take forth our action into the world without being too worried about the results, then you are more in control, because things will happen, and the world outside will react the way it will. And I mean, even if you look at the Gita, forget the 47th slok of the second chapter, which is what people talk of, the karmanye vadhikarastha one, but look at the 48th one, where it says yogastha kuru karmani. So basically, where Krishna is telling Arjun that you do your action steadfast in balance. Equanimity is the central point of life. That if there is one thing you can take away from the Bhagavad Gita, it is equanimity. That if you are able to have a mind which is unperturbed, that situations will come up, down, here, there, everything will happen. You'll go on a ride, but you don't need to experience all the highs and all the lows equally. You can still be in the center, that you know that this too shall pass.
But that is very hard to practice, especially in today's day and age, where there is so much overload of information, where there is comparison, where there is anxiety in this world. So just practicing that is not so easy.
So it comes from knowing who you are and what you really want. Unfortunately, we do not have an answer to both these questions, and we are in mad pursuit of what we ourselves are not even sure of, and the mind will take us on a ride, because your bars of comparison will keep changing. They were here, by the time you reached here, the bar moved somewhere else. And you saw somebody, way above, and then you benchmark there and again become unhappy. It's an endless loop. So maturity of living is actually realizing that, yes, I have done these foolish things. What have they led me to? Now at some point of time, I need to start questioning and saying, okay, I don't want to continue this loop. I'm done. I found my center. I found my purpose, and I'm happy with this. So it's a choice. We are free to go with the emotions, then they'll take us where they'll take us, but we are also free to divorce ourselves from the emotions and say that no, I'm in control, and I choose to see. if you actually think about it, Sonia, there is nothing out there. Everything is a projection in our head. The whole life, your life depends on the conversation that you're having between your 2 ears. And as Charlie Chaplin used to say that life is a tragedy close up and a comedy in the long shot.
Yeah.
So if you take a long shot view of life, it is a grand comedy. It is meaningless. It all ends in nothing. So might as well just have it's a joke on us. Might as well have a great time doing what you are doing. Because one day it's just going to end like this anyway. But that doesn't mean that. See, the day you learn that you can do serious work without being serious is the discovery of joy. When work becomes play, that is something that you are going to do, and do it damn well. When Amitabh Bachchan goes on the screen and acts, you are convinced that he's that character.
And he's having fun.
But he doesn't go home and say rishte mein to hum tumhare baap hote hain. He knows that that's a role he played. Unfortunate problem with us is that we become so egocentric that one comment that somebody passes on us which is not a good one salute somebody doesn't do to us that we expect, and the whole world comes crashing down. The minute we go towards simplicity and say that I just want to have a great time doing something, building something, becoming something. So the purpose of life, the way I define it is just three: building, so creating something, becoming something, and giving back. There are only three things that are of any value to life. As long as what you are becoming a better person with time, as long as you are creating something that will last beyond you, and as long as you are able to give back in some ways, in whatever ways, back to people who will appreciate it, that's a great life. Beyond that, what is there? I think we do too much of drama.
I agree, especially in our heads.
Yeah, it's all in our heads. There is nothing. See, the point is that, they say that sabse bada rog, ki kya kahenge log. The problem is that nobody is thinking about us. Yeah. Only we are thinking about what other people are thinking about us. How much do we think about other people?
Nobody cares.
So nobody really cares. Then what is this whole thing in our head of having an image, and what will people think about our image, and then protecting that image at the cost of everything. But in the end, what is it? So the autobiography needs to be very simple. I came, I had fun, I left.
No, I agree. And you made a very important point about shedding of the ego, right? And that's a big thing. Like recently, I saw this interview that Jim Carrey had given, and he's also gone into this. I don't know if you've watched him recently, but Jim Carrey has sort of gone into the spiritual awakening path. And
he looks the part as well.
Yeah, I guess he's playing that part. But he said in an interview that I want to thank Jim Carrey for allowing me to play him. That's all it was, right? In the last 30 years, it was just a part that I was playing, and I want to thank him for the opportunity to do that. Shedding of the ego and cessation of the mind, right? These are two topics that are spoken about by every spiritual guru, whether it's Osho, whether it's Jiddu Krishnamurti, whether it's even in the Gita. But I want to understand from a young person's perspective, because we understand these things very late in life.
So the day you create the ability to look at your life in the third person, it is extremely empowering. Because the minute you are able to, so there was a Swami called Swami Ram. He used to talk about him in the third person. And say that today, it was great fun. Ram went, and people made fun of him, and he was so shaken up. And you should have seen his face. I had a great time, looking at what he went through. The day we are able to see in life, I believe we have two choices. Either we use the lens of humor, or we are developing a tumor. We have only two choices. Humor is a choice we have that unfortunately we do not use. We only use humor when we are happy. Actually, humor has been discovered by the most unhappiest people in the planet. So Jews have the maximum joke. Because of what they went through, they used humor. So in all civilizations that have gone through difficulty, humor has emerged because your only choice is to either become cynical, because see, intelligence will lead you only two destinations. Either it will lead you to cynicism, or it will lead you to humor, because then you are saying that I've got the joke. I've got the joke and now everything is funny. But you have to understand and you have to go through it. Just because somebody says it, you cannot repeat those words. They have to become your experience. So it's okay. If you are going through an experience, go through it. But simple things like we will not laugh over the same joke twice. Why do we cry over the same thing twice? At least we can start with that from today I will not cry over the same thing the second time. One time I'll cry how much ever I need to, but I should be done with it, because I will never laugh at the same joke twice. Now I will not cry at the same thing twice. Then you realize that in our head we are constantly either regurgitating the past, or
Worrying
either
about the
fearful about the
future.
future or romantic about the future. We are only in two places. We are never in the present. But all joy and all action is in the present. So what is happiness? It is when you forget the past and the future. When you are in this moment is only the time you are happy. So unfortunately, our mind is designed not to allow us to be happy. We just have to break this pattern. But the pattern is broken once you start seeing the pattern. And which is why you go to Vipassana, and that helps you kind of break the pattern and allow you for one time to just sit quietly and think that what is it that's going on in my head? Who is this thinking? Am I even thinking? Or are thoughts just coming on their own and they are taking me to where they want to take me to? So it is about regaining control of your life, and I would recommend that people should do Vipassana once, try it once. It will probably be that little break in your routine that will force you to think differently.
Actually, sitting with yourself in silence is very, very hard until you crack it. Because even I found it really tough to do that. I mean, Vipassana is an altogether different ball game. But why is it so hard to just sit with your thoughts? And today's generation, particularly, right? Today's day and age, I see that unhappiness, unfulfillment, anxiety, fear are at an all-time high. Why do you think that is?
See, the somewhere people think that you need to be doing something all the time, and it starts now at childhood when mothers arrange play dates, plan the child's calendar, and chalk and activities, this time to this time piano class, this time to this time acrobats and whatever. So the point is that boredom is essential for creativity. And unfortunately, we have taken away boredom from our lives. Just sitting and doing nothing, we have taken that away from, because there are too many distractions. There's your mobile phone always on, always taking you to fancy places. So there is too many distractions all around us, and these distractions are exactly what is making us unhappy, because the surfeit of information is actually taking away concentration from you. And as Osho used to say, that you cannot sit with yourself for 10 minutes. Look at what terrible company you are, and then you are imposing it on others. So when two people meet, they are two people escaping each other, which are meeting. How can they ever find happiness in each other? Because each is just trying to escape himself or herself. So the simple point is that unless you actually sit down and experience it once yourself, that what really happens to you when you sit down and do nothing, and you'll realize that your mind will say, I'm hungry, I'll put on the AC, I'm uncomfortable, I'll change the position, let me put on the TV, there's a call I need to make, I've not made it for 2 weeks, but now we need to make it right now. So it will constantly keep getting you into an activity mode, and you are constantly trying to escape yourself. When you break the pattern, it's in your power to do it. You just need to take control. It's not easy, because the mind has been the master for too long. The mind is a great servant, but a terrible master. And unfortunately, we have allowed this terrible master to take control of our life. That's a pattern that we can and should break. But as every habit, it breaks only with a lot of effort, will, and realization.
So you have a lot of humor in your life, and in your book as well. I see that it's quite, it's quite funny in different ways. You're always either laughing at yourself or laughing about something else. Is that very intrinsic, or did you have to work on it? And how did your journey, whether you want to call it spiritual journey, whether you want to call it awakening, how did it start?
No, I wouldn't call it awakening. That's too strong a term. But somewhere along the way, so I've been a voracious reader all my life, and in fact, I'll tell you a personal story that I must be 11 or 12, and my mother was extremely worried that I may just leave everything and go. because the kind of books I was reading, the kind of conversations I was having, she was very worried that this guy has may just become a sadhu or something and walk away. And she actually made me take a promise, and I gave her my word, that the point is not to escape. The point is to be right here, do everything that is expected of me, but in the end, not being of this place. So the whole approach is that you work as if your life depends on it, but you know that nothing matters. It's all a joke. But if you win, that's a joke. If you lose, that too is a joke. Today, those who are praising you, tomorrow are going to criticize you. So don't take this praise too seriously, because the criticism will always come. It always comes. With time, it always comes, because you have to remember that the distance between a pat on the back and the kick on the butt is inches. So it is about just getting the joke of life, that in the end, it is all a grand joke that is played on us. Once we get the point, also when you look at yourself in the third person, see what happens when you see a movie and you see the Charlie Chaplin slipping on a banana peel. You laugh. Can you do that when the same thing happens to you? Why? I mean, the same thing has happened. There's a banana peel, and you've slipped, but you have a choice. At that moment, you have a choice, to laugh at it, and not take yourself too seriously. So it's possible to take your work very seriously, but not take yourself so seriously. It is just very liberating, and the essence of peace, of happiness is peace, and essence of peace is that liberation from bondages that we have created unnecessarily on ourselves. It's actually, life is not so heavy. You just made it so heavy.
Have you cracked it for yourself? Are you happy today? Have you found joy?
Oh yes, so see, I believe that a day that you haven't really laughed is a day wasted. A day that you haven't really made fun of yourself is a day grandly wasted. And the day you haven't really realized that in the end, in the end, have you lived your day as if even if this was the last day, you would not have a regret. As long as the answer to this is yes, you've had a great day. And it may so have happened that in that day something good could have happened. You are thankful to God for it. That day something not so pleasant could have happened. That also is part of life. Summer, it is hot. Winters are cold. What is the point of complaining?
So in your journey, you've had such a corporate journey. I mean, you've been in the thick of, so to speak, every emotion that a human goes through, whether it is success, whether it is fear, whether it is anxiety, because that's what happens in a corporate setup, right? And then, of course, entrepreneurship. But maintaining your sanity amidst all of that, was it very hard? Because it's easier for people to say, get up and go to the hills and live by themselves, meditate, and then practice all of this that we talk about. But being in the thick of the corporate system, or this rat race that we call it, and then kind of taking a step back, is it very tough?
See, there is no escape. There is no escape. You cannot go to the hills. There also you will set up an ashram. So instead of a home, you'll have an ashram. Instead of a family, you'll have followers. And then you will still be, instead of asking for private equity for capital, you'll be asking your followers for money to run the ashram. So there is no escape. And what is the point to escape? You can be off the world. But so see, the point is that when you think that दुनिया में आया हूँ, तलबगार नहीं हूँ, बाजार से निकला हूँ, खरीदार नहीं हूँ. That if
detachment.
No, it is not even detachment. It is like saying that I'm going through this journey of life. I will do everything that is expected of me to do, and I will do it better than what anybody else can do, because now there's no ego. Now there is no third. Now it's a third person that I have to, every day morning when I shave, I look at myself in the mirror and say, this is the role I'm going to play today. Today I'm playing the CEO of SBFC, and I have to play it damn well, as well as I can. So then I have to play that role to the most honesty, that I can. But when I come back home, there is no CEO of SBFC. He will come tomorrow morning. Now that fellow is gone. So the point is that and it doesn't come. It doesn't come at the start. But if you've lived your life well, it should come. The white hair have to be earned, and once they are earned, they have to also be pay for itself, and that payback is realization that life is in the joy is in the small things. There is no big thing that can give you joy. It is always in the small things. The day we find the ability to see joy in small things. So there's a Zen poet called Basho, which says that I see the Nazunia blooming by the hedge with two exclamation marks. The Nazunia is an ordinary grass flower, which you would not even, which you would see also and not see. The day we are able to see beauty in the most ordinary things of life, the day we are able to see humor in the most ordinary things of life, life transforms. Then you realize that it is not about the big things. In the end, it is all about the small things.
But okay, that's true. I mean, that I completely agree with that, and I'm also trying to practice that. But when you are in the thick of, like, I'll tell you my own experience, right? When you're in the thick of this corporate rat race, when you're in the thick of this, what is the next promotion you get, what is the next increment you get, what is the next designation you get, and a lot of youngsters are in that loop. It's very hard to take a step back and kind of reflect upon it and try and understand the issues. And that's where this entire loop of, say, anxiety, fear, all of that starts. So how do you practice it bit by bit, step by step, without really, taking yourself out of the system?
See, you have to first of all know what is it that drives you. To a lot of people, fear is a stronger element. To a lot of people, who are blessed with more confidence, optimism is their more stronger component. I began life with fear being my motivator. So for me, it was about the fear of not being good enough, the fear of failure, the fear of not being able to make it. Was the dominant factor in my mind those days, and to a large extent that continues. That I do find fear a very strong driver. Now, if you look at what happens in the Rocky Mountains, that the bisons experience a very exhibit a very strange behavior. That when the storm comes, they run towards the storm, and that is how they outrun it, because the storm passes through them, while the other animals run away from the storm by instinct, and the storm then keeps chasing them. So the point is that somewhere you realize that it is possible to run towards your fear rather than away from it. So it is like saying swallow the frog first, that whatever you are afraid to do it instantly. And that is how you conquer fear. That fear doesn't ever go away by reasoning with it, or by postponing it, or by putting it off for some point later. But fear always disappears, and you always realize that then through experience you realize that everything I feared, I did. And everything ultimately turned out easier than what I'd feared. So then my fear is misplaced. So after a point of time, you realize that, listen, this fear fellow, don't take him too seriously. He's not really up there. He's just playing ghost in your head. Actually, he doesn't have any power. You are much more powerful than your fear. But that only happens when you run towards your fear and go through it. Because, as Churchill used to say, that if you find yourself going through hell, keep going. Because the only way is through. There is no way. Choice, yeah. There is no other way.
Yeah, true. You said that you used to fear failure earlier. Do you still fear it now? I mean, now, of course, you've taken that plunge and you started a company on your own.
No, so I don't fear it, but I'm very cognizant of it. So it is always there in my mind that, whatever little, we have achieved can all be taken away. So unless I do the best I can, unless I'm able to do the best I can, unless the entire team delivers to what the expectations are, all of this can be taken away. So I cannot sleep peacefully in the night thinking that okay, we've achieved anything, because everything that has been built can be unbuilt, and the unbuilding is a much more rapid process than building. So you always have to be until you are in this position, you always have to be cognizant of the fact that to get to here was one challenge. To take it to where we want to take it is going to be another challenge. And things can go wrong, so you have to be careful, because the reality is that the truck drivers know it on the highways that nazar hati, durghatna ghati.
So I must admit, this has been like a proper therapy session for me. Therapy free of cost, because I struggle with a lot of these emotions as well. And Something that I've always struggled with, and I know a lot of young people struggle with as well, is anger, right? Especially in today's day and age. Anger towards your parents, anger towards your spouse, anger towards your children. What is anger really, and how do we sort of move past it?
So at a fundamental level, anger is a reaction we have towards anything that we believe is coming in our way. So if whether I want something and something is coming within that way, or something is not going the way I want it, or somebody is not saying things the way I want it, or my ego is getting hurt because of somebody saying things that I don't want to hear. So effectively, it is between me and the object I desire. Whatever is and whoever is coming in the way, becomes where my anger gets directed at. So it's a natural spring, that comes, from within. Uh, Unfortunately, what happens is that because we do not believe that we have control over our emotions, we have let anger loose, and the society, has made it normalized that anger is a natural, normal emotion, and it is part of day-to-day life. It doesn't need to be so. It is possible for, once you realize that this is something that is arising within me, that I can control. The whole approach to anger changes because you can see that there is a pattern through which anger builds in you. And if you observe it, it comes the same way each time to the same pipe. Now you know that in this pipe, water has started to build and it is going to come out. And what is important is that at the first step, you just practice silence. That when anger will come, you won't be able to stop it, but you will not express it. So the first thing is to break the pattern that we have, that there's an anger and there's an expression, anger and expression. First thing is to break the expression, to say that, okay, now next time when anger bubbles up within me, I will just go silent. I will not say anything. I will just go silent.
But I have a question here. So, this is what I read in a book, that suppression and expression are both problematic, right? Suppression is when you harm yourself, and expression is when you harm others. So, you're saying that when you don't express, inevitably what you're doing is just suppressing it, which is also not good.
That's the first step. So first what happens is that you cut the damage that the anger is going to cause. When you cut because see, what happens is that it otherwise you will always have a pattern of guilt coming later. If you've expressed it and you've hurt somebody with it, then there is guilt coming with it later. So at least you've cut the pattern and said, okay, now I'm not expressing it any longer. Once you've not expressed it, then the second job is to go within yourself and figure out why did that anger arise, which is what we generally don't do. When we go within, we realize that the anger that arose within arose because of me, not because of the other person. Once you see that, then you realize that, okay, there is something within me that I need to cure. So far, what we believe that the other person gives us anger. Nobody can give us anything. What is there is within us. The other person only allows us to express. So it's like this, that if I have the reason the coffee cup turned over and coffee fell is because there was coffee in the cup. If somebody knocks my cup, if the cup was empty, nothing will come out. So because there was anger within me, that person just allowed it expression come out. So then I have to go within me and figure out where is the anger inside me. Where is it sitting inside me that I need to throw sunlight on? The minute I go within and I throw sunlight, it escapes. The only reason it can keep staying within you is when you allow darkness inside. So we are actually protecting our anger at personal cost. If we direct our energies within, the anger will be caught and it will escape, and you will see the pattern. And next time you will catch it much before. Then you don't have to stop expression. You will catch it as it is arising. But that's a process. You go through that process. If you do it sincerely, you will you will actually own anger, and not just control, own anger.
So, in terms of authors or books or even spiritual teachers, I do know that in the last 1 hour you have spoken about so many. So I'm sure you have like a wisdom of sort of a plethora of books that you read, etc. But any 3 or 4 books that stand out for you, which are a must read for today's generation?
Oh, that is a very tough one. But I would say that read Richard Feynman on physics. Because to understand life, you must understand physics. And I regret not taking science in my school back then. But now I read extensively physics, and Richard Feynman, is my guru, who taught me, physics. Because between Richard Feynman and Carl Sagan, you get into quantum mechanics, which is the micro part of how the world is made, to what is beyond space and beyond us. And then you realize that what a fascinating it is. The world is a magic show. We are sitting on a ball of metal and and earth, which appears to be still, but which is spinning on its axis at 1600 kilometers an hour, while rotating around the sun at 107,000 kilometers around an hour. And it appears that we are still, but this is the pace at which we are actually moving. So if this is not a magic show, what is? So we are actually part of a magic show, and this you will only get the appreciation if you understand how this works. So we need to understand physics, chemistry, biology. They say, what will it help? But I'm sorry, I did not do them, and I had to go back to them. Math is extraordinarily important, because that is what explains to you logical thinking. Statistics are extraordinarily important, that you need. Then when it comes to philosophy, one of the masters that I early on picked up was Osho, because Osho is a professor. I don't care what person he was or what all controversy surrounded him. But as a professor, he was a master, because he has spoken on every religion of the world. So through him, you get an insight into everything, that is out there, from Zen to Confucius to Lao Tse to Kabir, you name it. He's spoken about everything. So with that, you get the full expanse. And then,
what is your biggest learning from Osho of all the teachings that you've had so far, or all the books that you've read so far?
One line: take it easy. So there is this beautiful book that he has called "Take It Easy," where the essence. I mean, it's a longish book, but the essence that I've taken away from it, the thoughts are in the book, but the words are mine. Where it says that when it rains, I let it rain. When it rains not, I let it not rain. When laughter comes, I laugh. When tears come, I weep. I do nothing, yet am very busy, for I am a man of original inactivity. I have realized in life there is nothing good, nothing bad, nothing to gain, nothing to lose, nothing to do, and nowhere to go. Take it easy.
Wow, that's amazing. That has just suddenly made me feel very calm. But I'm a big reader of Osho as well, and I there's so many learnings, so many teachings, right? But apart from Osho, you were telling me, what are the other spiritual teachers or philosophy or anything that you would recommend?
So the Bhagavad Gita and the Ashtavakra Gita are a must. Gurdjieff, if you are really interested in more advanced philosophy, George Gurdjieff, and P.D. Ouspensky are outstanding. What is important is that one shouldn't become unidimensional. One has to try to be a polymath and be good at multiple things. So because knowledge comes in all shapes and sizes. So when I've studied the Hindustani classical music, just because all the rags really and how they are constructed, really are fascinating. That how does one differentiate between a rag Yaman, and what are the classics within Yaman? So what is the difference between a Yaman and a Yaman Kalyan? What goes into that? When you start really understanding the emotions behind the construct of music, that is a journey of its own, and that takes you into different lands. Urdu poetry, the same philosophy has been described by Ghalib in his own way. If you read the Ghalib or the Masnavi of Rumi, these are all masters who have described language is different. What they're saying is the same thing, but the language is very, very different. So what is important, is I've read every single book on business that you can think of. Most autobiographies and biographies I would have read in some way or the other. There are some amazing podcasts. Today's generation doesn't want to read too much. There are two podcasts that I would highly recommend, that people watch. One is called Acquired, and one is called Founders Podcasts. These are two podcasts where they analyze all business stories and one of them analyzes books. So all biographies, autobiographies, etc. The books are analyzed and put out there in simple 30-40 minutes, etc. If you don't have time to read the full book. But essentially, what is important is to be a sponge and soak in as much as you can from wherever you can, and then, like Steve Jobs, believe that dots connect, but only looking backward, not looking forward.
Wow, this has really been an amazing session. I have learned a lot, and thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your time.
One last thing,
You
is
were
that
actually recommending a book for stock market investors.
so one last book that I would recommend for all people who are involved in the stock market in any way, all investors, is a book called The Hour Between the Wolf and the Dog by John Coates, and it's a fascinating book. The title comes from the fact that at dusk, from a distance, you are not able to make out whether it's a wolf or a dog. And that's what it is, that whether it's an opportunity or whether it's a risk is something that's not very clear when you're making that investment decision. So it is about what happens in the trader's body when he takes risk. So what happens to our body when we take risk? What are the biological chemical reactions that go within us when we take risk? We don't think of it in these terms. But it is fascinating, if people read the book, they will enjoy the journey, that it takes them through. Because essentially, the definition is that what is stress? Stress comes from three places. Comes from novelty, from not being in control, and from it being unpredictable. When anything is unpredictable, when you're not in control, and when it is new, is when we feel stressed. So ultimately, it is about saying that there are two kinds of approaches that you can have. That when there is something novel, a new experience, does that really make us excited? Some people, it makes them excited, and with some people, it makes them fearful of doing something new. So that creates a different stress in them. So ultimately, it's about knowing what is happening in your body, and only what you know you can control.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to read that one very soon. But like I said, this has been, thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your time. It's really been a great lesson for at least me, and I'm sure for all our viewers as well. But the show is called Money Mindset. So we always end by asking our guests what money means to them, because there is one journey of creativity and your career path and your passion, but there's another journey that people go through where over the years a lot of trauma around money is built in them for several reasons, right? Conditioning or whatever circumstance. But what has your relationship with money been, and how have you worked on it over the years?
Money is a great way to keep score. And ultimately, the way the society is designed, the sum total of everything, is money. So, and it does make the world go around, and it makes happiness, it multiplies happiness, and it divides pain. So it's a great magical number. Normally, you either have a number multiplier or a divisor. But this is one thing that does both at both ends. So in today's day and age, it is extremely important, that one has a extremely healthy relationship with money. It is not something that can be shunned away or can be looked down upon. But as they say, and my dad used to say that the Lakshmi that comes from Saraswati stays with you. And is good. The Lakshmi that comes without Saraswati, it creates harm to you. And it is in our ancient say that Lakshmi never comes alone. If Saraswati is not in your home, it comes with its sister Alakshmi, which is actually the seeds of your downfall. And it leaves by that path. So as our ancient masters told us that Vidya dadati vinayam, dadati patratam. Patratam dadati dhanam, and dhanam dharma sukham. So basically, the way the ladder of this, is that wealth which is rightly earned through good means and will make you happy, and if rightly spent, in good causes, will make you even happier.
And for somebody, just to simplify this further, for someone who is sort of starting their journey, a lot of us chase money, right? We don't chase passion as much, is at least what I've learned over the years. How do you change that relationship? What should you be chasing?
See, what happens is that money is, by its nature, it is not something that should be directly sought or can be directly sought. Because it leads you to make suboptimal decisions in your life. So the reason why you should not directly chase money is not because it is bad, but it will make your decisions go wrong. Because then your whole purpose of anything gets defeated. For example, if you're a builder, if you are looking at saying that in this project I want to make 100 crores, then you will do everything that will be shortcuts to making a great product. But if you are making a great product and money comes as a byproduct, that is the way to be. So the idea is that you should be chasing in who you should be worried about who you are becoming in the process of what you are doing, and you should be chasing what you are creating. Money as a byproduct, has to come because results are nothing but efforts conditioned by time. So, if your efforts are right, the right results will come. You have to be patient, but your purpose has to be right, because if in the chase of money you become a lesser person, then you have paid a very heavy price for that money.
Aseem, thank you so much. We can go on and on, but unfortunately there is paucity of time. In all your pursuits, in all your endeavors, I wish you luck. And you have been a great part of the banking industry. But today's episode was not about that. Today's episode was more about your philosophical journey. And thank you for sharing everything that you've learned so far.
And I must compliment you on the bold step that you have taken. And I wish you very well on the journey. I'm sure as well as you have done in your earlier avatar, you will do even better here.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Thank you. It's been hard for sure, but it's only one thing that this journey has given me, and that's freedom. And I think everyone should just pursue freedom at the end.
Mark Twain said that it is very easy to start something. All you need is ignorance and confidence.
And I definitely have both. Thank you so much. Thank you. It was really a pleasure speaking to you.